Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to Data in the Greater Good. I'm Elaine Gamble, community leader of Data in the Greater Good, where our focus is the use of data in mission-driven organizations. We're so honored to have with us tonight New York Classical Theater and Hilary Cohen, managing director of New York Classical Theater, who will talk to us about how data is used at New York Classical Theater to better understand their audiences and preferences among other areas. So for more than 20 years, New York Classical Theater has offered free classical performances in public spaces throughout New York City. And it makes theater, professional performances, accessible to a range of audiences and incomes, families. We come together regardless of our neighborhood, regardless of any other dimensions around our background. And we come together to have wonderful community in enjoying a professional classical performance. It has enriched the lives of thousands of New Yorkers with performances by Shakespeare, among other classical playwrights in New York Central Park, among other areas. The welcoming come as you are approach for performances in large spaces consistently attracts a large number of attendees. And New York Classical had a lot of success. And then of course, COVID hit. Performances could no longer be offered. And there was a need to maintain engagement with the audiences so that post-COVID, they would resume coming to performances. Data has been a key enabler of what has enabled New York Classical Theater to sustain COVID, reemerge, continue performances strong and even stronger than before through the excellence of data, audience, and donor engagement. Tonight, New York Classical's managing director, Hilary Cohen, will talk to us about who is attending performances outdoor in 2021 compared to pre-pandemic seasons. What has the data said to us? Where did audiences find out about the performances? Were there any means of advertising or other that were particularly effective? What communication do the audiences prefer? Before, during, and after a program? How well did audiences support New York Classical Theater during COVID? Are audiences likely to keep returning for a next season? Did COVID have a permanent impact on interest in classical theater? Based on the data, what changes can New York Classical make to keep audiences delighted and engaged over time? So Hilary would discuss these areas related to New York Classical Theater, many of which are transferable to the arts in general. To tell you more about Hilary, Hilary Cohen has been the management half of New York Classical Theater since May 2018. She has a very distinguished background in the nonprofit profession. Her work includes experience with successful arts organizations, including Vox Populi Cooperative Gallery, Manhattan Theater Club, Film Forum, Wave Hill Public Garden and Cultural Center, and the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, as well as Cherry Lane Theater. She is a graduate of Drexel University with a degree in corporate communication and a theater production minor. Hilary studied nonprofit administration at NYU's Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service and has served as a grant panelist for the Alliance of Resident Theaters in New York City. I have personally enjoyed working with Hilary as a member of the board of New York Classical Theater. She's been a past speaker, and we are so honored to have Hilary back with us tonight. Welcome back, Hilary.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and thank you for inviting me to speak again. As Elaine said, we're going to talk a little bit about data at New York Classical Theater. So I have worked in external communications and fundraising my whole career, and over 18 years and 8 arts organizations, I can say that New York Classical is extraordinarily unique. Our mission is unique in the sense that we are guided by creating and reinvigorating audiences. So we focus on access by never charging for tickets and performing in large open public spaces so that everyone feels welcome. This is a production still from our most recent season. In summer 2021, we performed King Lear. So how does our mission compare in the context of our larger industry? You can get a sense that New York is a very expensive place to live, but we think of our performances as an attainable luxury experience compared to Broadway. We bring professional artists to mixed income neighborhoods, and local repeat audience members know to look for us each summer in the parks. And this is a production still from our performances of The Importance of Being Earnest in 2019. So how do we use numerical information we collect, and what are our data related questions? As Elaine said, basically we use information about our audiences in order to make sure that we're serving the most people we can and making sure that they're having the best possible engagement experience from us as a community service organization. So we do kind of compare now season over season, and our most recent performances, again, in summer 2021, we performed King Lear, but the season before that, we were just performing online. And then the most recent comparable season in person in parks, we performed in 2019, The Importance of Being Earnest, and we'll be kind of walking through how those two experiences compare. So the first example is where our audiences attend. And generally, this particular set of statistics confirms for us that our Central Park audience, which is our longest running location for performances, and the first show location. So we perform there first, we rehearse for several weeks, and that tends to draw that consistent fan base that we've developed over 22 seasons. So it was really nice to see. We're happy to see them back now that we were in person again, and they were happy to see us after a summer online. The other thing that I noticed, at least, was about Carl Schurz Park. We've been performing there from our 2015-2016 season. And it's not that Metro Tech, Brooklyn Commons stole its audience. What we see is that the closing park has the majority of the reservations. So word of mouth picks up and awareness gains momentum. And as performances get rained out or people's plans change, they tend to move their performance date further down the line. So they tend to come at the end of the run of the show. So in 2019, the show closed in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and in 2021, the show closed in the Battery, and these charts kind of bear that out in terms of the majority of the reservations will always kind of close the run for us. So we also talk about comparing where people live based on the mailing address associated with their reservation. Between 75 and 85% of all of our audiences live in New York. We're a very local theater company. So our ability to serve all 5 boroughs is very important to the city council members that fund us through the Department of Cultural Affairs. I found it interesting, comparing 2019 to 2021, that the areas where we've never appeared maintain the same proportions. Brooklyn and Queens dipped only a bit, but I think that really tells me that we did a pretty good job of publicizing Brooklyn Commons at Metro Tech. It was a totally new venue for us, and we were there for 1 week instead of 2, compared to our previous Brooklyn appearances. But we had great support from Brookfield Properties and the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, which is a group of business improvement districts that really helped get the word out. We also ask folks when they make their reservation to self-select whether this is an adult ticket, a student ticket, or a senior ticket. And this is a core part of why having online reservations has been such a powerful tool for us. It can also be important in terms of accountability and a source for board oversight. As audience members make their reservations, their indication of what kind of family type they're bringing or who's attending with them tells our board of directors they like to see that we are serving community members with a limited budget, community members on a fixed income who might not be otherwise able to afford theater. So that includes students and seniors. And their preference is for kind of a year over year, 1/4 to 1/3 of the whole. It was a difficult metric for us to hit in terms of the goals for this summer. I think the majority of our 2021 performances being in July after the school year ended affected the number of students who attended as opposed to 2019. And to be honest, I think that there were students who didn't have on-campus learning, so they didn't necessarily travel to New York City this summer, and there were many seniors who didn't necessarily feel comfortable gathering yet. So needless to say, this is going to be a focal point in our outreach goals when we plan for summer 22. So we also use data in order to kind of find out how our profile is doing and how people are hearing about us and raising that awareness as the performance date, our opening night approaches. So what we found out from our post-performance survey, when we asked, how did you learn about the show? This is absolutely another challenge or an area of opportunity for us. We invest in a publicist. So I would be really disappointed if press wasn't the getting as much traction as it is. But we're definitely hearing more each day about the increasing social media presence and we have to seriously kind of focus on seeing if we can develop that channel as a more robust source for publicizing our work. Our audience development methods have been pretty organic so far. So this is an area for closer study, especially with the coming summer season in 22. So we talked about a little bit, as Elaine mentioned, about what communications our audiences prefer. And I really sincerely believe in letting them dictate to us where their comfort zone is. So I'm not sure if this is unique to New York or theater or New York classical, but our digital communications channels absolutely grew across all sources during the pandemic. People were at home, they logged in, and they used the internet to stay involved with what they used to go to in person. So I think this chart really gives a sense for the comparative sizes of each channel's following. My theory about the source's growth during the pandemic is kind of borne out in our Twitter account. It had the most modest, it did have growth, but it had the most modest growth. And I think that's because the biggest activity periods for our Twitter account historically have been during in-person theater conferences or around a classical theater specific hashtag. So audience members definitely showed that they enjoy engaging with us via our Instagram account, and it had a 75% increase in followers. But it's still relatively small compared to our total MailChimp subscribers or our Facebook or Meta likes. We're working to take advantage of features like stories and leverage that large archive of production stills to capitalize on that Instagram audience growth. So we do perform for free, but that also means that we have to generate revenue through donations. Without ticket sales, it's really important to us to follow who is attending and then making a donation when they make their reservation. So both our participation rate and our average gift increased significantly from 2019 to 2021. And I think some of that is absolutely the audience members' gratitude for having us back, especially with so few professional theater performances for so long. Another factor, though, is the pitch was much stronger, actually, in part thanks to Elaine. In 2019, we were talking a lot about donations in celebration of our 20th anniversary season. And I think that legacy audience members would definitely, that speaks to them. But new to New York classical audience members, maybe that isn't the milestone that is meaningful in their frame of reference. So in 2021, we were talking about paying artists, we were talking about paying for our COVID safety protocols, and talking about paying our interns. It was a really important equity conversation for us in terms of what is the EDI for that early career student or recent graduate who's interning for us, and now they're paid as well. And I think that people were inspired by that ask to increase their giving. So what do we mean when we say inspiring loyalty? Basically, this is our way of measuring our success at connecting with people, and that kind of I like to say it's like a JD Power and Associates score. So these are absolutely my favorite charts. They really tell us that we must be doing something right. We asked King Lear audiences on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not likely at all, 10 being very likely. How likely are you to join us again? And no survey is going to get all 10s across the board, but we were really very pleased to see that it was a generally positive response. And there is a real stereotype of New Yorkers, especially ones that respond to surveys, on bonding over like a culture of complaint. So this is why we were, again, really gratified to see that when we asked King Lear audiences, how likely are you to recommend us, over 90% rated us at an 8 or more. So, I mean, in general, what does this teach us? What did we learn from all of this parsing of reservation information, of gift information? Based on the data, what changes can we make to keep our audiences engaged? And I think that that's really about what our next steps are. I mean, it helps us strategize as a business. Yes, we're an arts organization. Yes, we do performances, but those performances are kind of only possible through business savvy, and that's how we sustain year over year. So we want to develop a journey to deepen our relationship consciously and consistently. We want to describe our value proposition, where we remind our community what it is we are offering to them. And we really have to kind of do some very clear strategic thinking about what success looks like to us, and what are those challenges and opportunities that we can address over the course of the next, whatever that is, 1 season, 3 seasons. So this kind of gives you a sense of what it is to join us for a show. This is 2018's Romeo and Juliet in Carl Schurz Park. And as Elaine said, I'm happy to take questions.
So Hillary, thank you for a very inspiring talk. I mean, it's looking at this picture here, it's inspiring just based on what my experience has been with the excellent performances that I've enjoyed, but it also inspires us about returning to experiences that we enjoyed pre-COVID, and you're helping us to enjoy them free of charge. So just looking at it, it says, oh, we're moving out of that stressful period and into the experiences that we enjoyed before. We'll enjoy them at a whole new level, thanks to New York Classical Theater.
I sure hope so. Thank you.
So thanks so much, Hillary. So a question for you, Hillary. As you looked at attendee satisfaction overall pre and post-COVID, what did the data tell you? One hypothesis might be people enjoy the performances more because, oh my gosh, I'm feeling like I can go back to living again. There might be a higher satisfaction because of what you were offering and helping with that journey of returning to normalcy. Um, or was there caution because, we're still, is everyone vaccinated, et cetera, that potentially impacted how they saw their experience? So, or are we overthinking it? So what are your thoughts there regarding satisfaction?
Oh, I think there's no such thing as overthinking it. I think that, that there is a qualitative piece of our surveys in addition to the quantitative piece. And what I would say was that there were definitely more pre-show questions, that before registering, people had more clicks on our FAQ on our website. They had more instances of calling our box office to kind of air out what their concerns were. And for every audience member who felt secure in an outdoor masked and distanced environment, there were audience members who, had concerns and needed to air that out. And I'm really glad that we were able to be there for that whole spectrum of New Yorkers, up to and including telling one audience member, listen, bring a 6-foot blanket. That picnic blanket can really create a border for you for how close you're comfortable being to your neighbors right now. And that really this was about, if you feel ready, we can make this as safe and enjoyable 2 hours, not thinking about the other stresses of the world this moment. So I was really, it was lovely, but absolutely there were some folks who were like, why do I still have to wear a mask if we're outside? And then all the way on the other side, there were folks who didn't feel ready yet. And we can be there for the folks who want to join us whenever they're ready to join us.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now, when you saw people come back, like we're looking at this wonderful performance from Carl Schurz Park, were there any learnings around who was more likely to return? Like Carl Schurz Park is on the Upper East Side. Did you see attendees and more likely to return in the Upper East Side like neighborhoods compared to others where you perform, or was it pretty consistent? Or stated differently, COVID had a disproportionate impact in general by demographics. So therefore, did you see any of that mirrored regarding who returned for performances?
I would say that in terms of returning, we had more audience members that were new to New York Classical in 2021 than we did the 2 previous seasons with box office reservations. So that was hovering in the high 60s, low 70%. And we had a full 80% new to New York Classical some performances. And so I think that was about that there were very few professional theater options at the time. And I think that it was good for us to be present and in those communities when there was less competition, to be honest. The Carl Schurz Park is a unique example because it's the venue with the highest proportion of seniors in the city, that had the largest elderly or retiree, however you want to put it, proportion, that particular city council district compared to any other city council district in the city. And so being able to offer this like in your neighborhood, easy to get to, comfortable place to enjoy something outside and socially distanced. I can't necessarily speak to folks who left for their vacation home earlier or stayed in their vacation home longer, or didn't necessarily return to their pied-à-terre in the city sooner, because we always have such mixed audiences. I think that it is our pleasure and our honor to serve every New Yorker. And so I think that being there, what people did jump at the opportunity, more people that had never encountered us before, is what I'll say about that. So I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does answer my question. And we have a question from Nicole. Nicole, do you want to share your question with the group?
Sure. Thank you for speaking. This is my first event for this meetup. So yeah,
Welcome.
but thank you.
Come back.
Yeah, I was just planning, like, are you planning to get, or wondering if you're planning to get more audience members from outside of Manhattan and Brooklyn, and wondering your a strategy for doing so if you are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We always want more audience members. More is more. And I think that part of our 2022, 2023 planning has certainly been about what that outreach and engagement activity should look like. So we're trying to be conscious of getting what I like to call getting beyond Time Out New York. I think that Time Out New York has been very good to us. I'm not picking on them, but what is that beyond just the press in terms of having that audience development and community outreach muscle for us? How are we going to spread the word? How are we going to describe how we are unique and what qualities we have that would generate audiences that are maybe new to theater, who are not necessarily familiar with classical theater? And I think part of that, so we did a set of performances on Roosevelt Island, and doing a set of performances in Brookfield Place, the mall downtown. And so when we are in other neighborhoods, that reach really can be hyper local. So we're trying to figure that out. And I also would say that the subject of the play can sometimes give us clues as to who we should connect with. So if we are doing a play by Moliere, connecting with francophones and French-English bilingual audiences can really make a difference. When we're doing Chekhov, connecting with the Russian-American community can really make a difference. So sometimes that helps guide who we talk to about which programs are coming up next.
Thank you, Hillary.
Interesting, thanks.
Another question, Hillary. In the earlier slide, it showed the average donation amount has increased post-COVID, which is very exciting to see. Based on the data, based on anecdotal information, combination of both, do you expect that to be sustained, or do you think it's more of a moment in time because of how people are feeling now? I want to help others, but then that could change. There's a lot of discussion around COVID having a permanent impact on some attitudes and willingness to support, but some feel it's temporary. So do you think that's something that will be sustained in how it benefits neoclassical, getting higher donation per donor?
So that's a really, it's the question that, like I said, like I've been doing this for a decade and a half, and it's a question that, for good or for bad, I guess for both, has come up like 3 times in my career. I think that people had this question about how will 9/11 affect downtown arts and downtown arts fundraising? How will the financial crisis and the mortgage bubble bursting affect arts organizations or charitable organizations? Specifically in town, the Madoff scandal had a significant impact on major donors who were very generous with New York arts organizations. I would say 3 things because I love making lists. One is that people are generous, and there's a certain segment of the population that was very pleasantly surprised that the pandemic did not have the financial impact on them that they feared, and that the change of administration was a significant factor in whether they were giving and how they were giving. I think that election years and years with other, let's call it a natural disaster, for example, a tsunami or an earthquake, can be a change of philanthropy amongst people, whether you're concerned about a particular social issue or you're concerned about a particular candidate getting elected, that will affect your giving. But I really do hope that we can sustain this. And the way that we sustain this is by, if somebody is new to us or has increased their gift, making sure that they feel like that was money well spent. It's in the best sense of the word, a competitive thing. And I hope to win.
Absolutely. We will win. So we have a question from Rachel. Rachel, did you want to share your question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for being here, Hillary, and thanks for organizing, Elaine. This is my second time here, having lots of fun. I was curious as to what other data points you're looking at when you think about how to maintain or increase the donation levels, given that this seems to be your main source of revenue.
Oh, okay. So we have a kind of a mix of contributions. We do have private foundation support, significant government support. As I said, the Department of Cultural Affairs supports us, the New York State Council on the Arts. So, individuals are not our only channel, but we certainly, always, that's a significant thing to cultivate for us. When we think about renewals, that is a pretty dyed in the wool, like old school programmatic thing. You communicate the benefits of patron program membership, and you make sure that you're touching base with people, that you're saying thank you as often as you're saying please. When we talk about acquisition, new members to the patrons program, and reacquiring lapsed people to the patrons program, it can be about either capturing their attention, again, in a very competitive environment, or winning their hearts back. So the other data points we can talk about is like, how sticky was that messaging? Was that a good e-newsletter subject line that got a lot of opens and clicks? We can talk about the rate of return on our direct mail pieces. So those are really kind of the again, like super historic. I did not invent the patrons program, but I learned about patrons programs from a lot of those previous wonderful employers, and trying to run that program as kind of competently as I can. The donation envelopes coming back will tell you if you're doing it right. The click rate and open rate on your emails will tell you if you're doing it right. And remain humble and say, like, it wasn't a winter month. Let's go back to the last winter month and what was so winter about it. So I guess that's for me, some other metrics that help me kind of help guide how we do this.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I see. So a lot of like,
I'm sorry, you were talking.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just meant, so it's like a lot of like digital marketing metrics, like.
Yes, very similar to digital marketing. I think that, I call it direct mail, but that's because I'm over 40. I think that essentially direct mail principles are applicable in a digital space, but yes, they are the same measurements. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Thank you. Sorry, Elaine, what were you saying?
No worries. This is your meeting. So this looks like a question for you, Maura. Hope, did you want to ask your question? Hope Frost?
Yeah, so hello everyone. This is also my first time with the group. I was just wondering, like, Hillary touched on social media, but are there plans on increasing the social media outreach, and how do you plan to go about that?
Well, excuse me, just let me clarify. Of course, it was referring to New York Classical Theater. I mentioned Maura because she does coordinate social media for this meetup. So yes, so for you, Hillary, are there plans to increase social media outreach?
I think there has to be. I to be honest with you, like, I don't think that in terms of return on investment, we can ignore it. But I also don't think that I am the right person to drive a brand new TikTok account. So the answer is yes, absolutely, but not by me. So I would encourage the folks who are already liking and following us to stay tuned, because there will be new things, but they won't necessarily come from my hands directly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So another question, Hillary. Many organizations, while they felt, while they, of course, experienced the setback of COVID-19 in having to be virtual, you don't have the in-person engagement, many reported that it increased their footprint. It gave them more of an international presence. It actually brought in new people that knew nothing about their organization before. We're not saying that's a great thing, the period, but for some organizations, it offered them much greater visibility and hence more people, more awareness that they will continue to benefit from afterwards. So what are your thoughts there regarding New York Classical?
I think that I would be remiss if I treated the last 18 months as just about COVID. There's been a lot of kind of eye-opening stuff going on in the last 18 months. And what that means for us in terms of having a inclusive outlook, having a broader vision for what we do is really, really important to us. Not just because of COVID, but certainly on a broad-based, we're a community service organization perspective. So one of the things that we are talking about doing is making hybrid options available. That we premiered Shakes in Place, which is a series of clips from previous productions. In case you missed it, you can go on our YouTube channel now and see single scenes from previous summers. And that is kind of a step in the right direction in terms of featuring the work of contemporary artists, in terms of making sure that artists of all cultural and ethnic backgrounds are seen doing their best work. And doing their life's work that they've trained for professionally. So I think that it is a great boon to us that we will always serve 75 to 85% New Yorkers. I think that's who we are, and that's also who funds us in terms of the government support. But that other quarter of our population should and can be as open as we are when we're in the middle of a park that you can stumble on. So the answer is yes, 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 more is more. That hybrid options are very enticing, especially because those previous productions can live on and have a future life when there are classes that are teaching a particular play and they can check it out on our YouTube channel, or families that want to talk about a particular play and they can just get that little taste of what we do.
Thank you so much, Hillary. And again, thank you for inspiring us with a wonderful talk about the beauty of data for New York Classical Theater and helping us to return to those wonderful experiences that we had before at no cost to New Yorkers. So a wonderful, inspiring talk. And I want to
thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. I want to also thank our audience for joining us tonight. And we'll also be sending a link to YouTube for you to enjoy it again there. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Elaine, if I could just add one more note.
Yes.
I'm really happy to hear that we have some new audience members with us today. That's really exciting. So I wanted to put in our chat, Data and the Greater Good has a group on LinkedIn, and I encourage you guys to join. In that group, we post the future events and also links to previous events if you weren't able to make it. Also, a lot of the organizations and speakers are on LinkedIn. So it's just a great place and different way to connect with the organization and the speakers. So definitely encourage those who are new to check it out and join.
Maura, thank you for that. And again, really appreciate all of you joining us. And please come back. Please continue to come back. We love having you. We love seeing you. Wonderful discussion. So thanks again to all. Good night.